Mydei is a really solid DPS that can compete with some of the best teams in the game, but his builds can be slightly confusing. In this video, I will be showing you how to maximize his insane damage potential, whether it be teams, builds, whatever. Let's start with the more straightforward trace priority. The majority of his damage will be coming from his skill, followed by his ultimate, and it's pretty good to double his talent as well for higher healing at the start of the fight. Unfortunately or fortunately, his basic attack is pretty much useless, so you can save materials there. For Relics, his planar ornament is pretty easy as well. He wants to get Bone Collection. It gives him extra HP and crit damage, both of which he really likes. For the 4-piece Relic sets and choices, it does get a little bit confusing, but I will try my best to explain. Mydei really wants 8000 HP. This is because of his bonus ability, Bloodied Chiton, giving him a ton of crit rate, increased charge generation, and outgoing healing boost based on his HP. All of this directly contribute to his damage output, since Mydei wants to be at high HP all the time, since his abilities consume current HP in order to gain charges faster. This breakpoint is genuinely quite important enough that a HP percentage body is actually very viable. Hence for Relic sets we have two options: Longevous Disciple and Scholar Lost in Erudition. Longevous Disciple increases Mydei's HP and crit rate, while Scholar gives him slightly less crit rate but a lot more damage boost. Right now, it seems a lot of people favor Scholar, but I actually found Longevous Disciple to be very slightly better. For Scholar, I don't like how it only activates the additional 25% skill damage boost after using an ultimate, meaning to make the full use of this, you ideally want to use Mydei's ultimate close to 150 charges for God Slayer. This can be a bit awkward because Mydei also depends on enemies for charges, so you either waste energy waiting for the perfect time to use his ultimate, or the enemy accidentally activates God Slayer for you by hitting him. For Longevous Disciple, it actually gives too much crit rate. To be the ideal set for Mydei, he would actually prefer higher HP percentage and less crit rate because his bonus ability already gives a whopping 48% at 8000 HP. Hence, if you are using supports like Sunday or RMC, or maybe even both, you would find it pretty easy to overcap on crit rate. However, I do still personally prefer Longevous Disciple because it is easier to play and it seems Hoyoverse thinks the same. Now for Relic stats, it kind of depends a little on your team, but more on your Light Cone and Relic sets. It's almost always HP Robe, Imaginary Damage Orb, and Speed Boots. You could technically run a solo Mydei with 161 Sunday or Sparkle, but you will literally have less actions than the 135-134 setup. Mydei really wants to take extra turns to maximize his charge generation, which is why I still recommend Speed Boots. The choice of the body piece is the more confusing decision. Basically, the main goal is to hit 8000 HP. Light Cones and Relic sets can help by giving extra HP percentage. After you hit 8000 HP, whether or not you use Longevous or Scholar doesn't really matter as much anymore because they perform at a very similar level. However, a HP body seems to be better with Scholar, while a crit damage body seems to be better with Longevous. This is most likely due to diminishing returns and the choice of teammates. These simulations are ran with Sunday, who can give quite a huge crit damage boost. Hence, even though you lose crit damage by going HP percentage body, Sunday's ultimate makes up for it when you are running Scholar and can even give you slightly more damage. Whereas in Longevous' case, you most likely already have too much HP percentage, and the extra HP you get from the body is less valuable than the extra crit damage you could potentially get, even with Sunday's ultimate. Hence, the best builds are HP and Scholar, but you must have Sunday or some crit damage support, otherwise it's going to be crit damage body, and then crit damage with Longevous Disciple. Thankfully, Light Cones are easier to choose from. You have his signature Light Cone, Flame of Blood, Blaze My Path, that gives HP percentage pretty much 60% damage boost at all times, incoming healing boost, and extra 6% maximum HP drain. Healing boost may look a bit weird or troll if you're not very familiar with his kit, but it's actually one of the most important stats in his kit. This is because Mydei wants to constantly stay at high HP so that he may consume more HP, as Kingslayer is based on current HP in order to gain more charges, since charges are based on maximum HP. Hence, healing boost is what keeps him at a higher HP value and allows you to build even more HP, otherwise his healers will struggle a bit to heal him to around full HP consistently. However, the 6% HP consumption works quite strangely. This consumes the HP first before his Kingslayer, which technically reduces the total consumption that he can potentially get. Ideally, this should be Kingslayer's consumption, followed by the Light Cone, since it is always 6% HP, so I don't know if it's an oversight on Hoyoverse's part or if it's actually just a small nerf for him. Anyways, extra HP consumption still leads to more charges than the other Light Cones, hence this is the best performing light cone for Mydei, which should be expected. The next best light cone is actually Blade's signature light cone, the Unreachable Side. Thanks to its passive being less niche, Mydei is able to use all these stats in the light cone, crit rate, HP percentage, and damage boost. However, just like Longevous, this actually gives us too much crit rate, and Mydei would ideally prefer higher HP percentage or damage boost, which is why it's a close second. From here, we have the free-to-play event light cone, Ninja Record Sound Hunt. It increases max HP and has a pretty much 100% uptime crit damage buff. The other free-to-play light cone is Flames Afar S5. This gives some healing when consuming HP, but more importantly, gives a 50% damage boost. Unfortunately, the buff only has 2 turns and the effect can only be triggered once every 3 turns and hence does not have 100% uptime. If you want to save resources for some reason, a Secret Vow and Mutual Demise can technically be okay options, but Mydei wants to constantly stay at high HP, which will reduce the uptime for the effects of these light cones, which is why I don't really recommend them. Which is why for stat goals, you really want to try to hit 8000 HP before the battle, but right now you don't really want to go too crazy as well and get like 12,000 HP either, because that means your healers have to work extra hard and will struggle to keep up, and that can actually lead to lower charge generation. With the healers we currently have, just about 8000 HP seems to be the sweet spot, because he will heal more HP than he consumes, allowing him to stay around max HP, meaning he gets maximum charges each turn that he takes. Which is why his number 1 priority for subsets is HP percentage until 8000, followed by crit damage and speed to at least hit 134 point something. If a future healer is able to heal a disgusting amount at a high frequency, we can then safely increase his max HP without worrying too much about his charge generation. And as always, as long as you already have 8000 HP, having higher than 135 speed is actually pretty good and will give you more damage. You don't have to stop at 135 or 134. At E1, Mydei basically solves his autoplay gimmick while getting even more AoE damage. His God Slayer's multiplier increases by 30% and it becomes an AoE attack at the same multiplier. This can result in a bigger damage boost than reflected here if the content or stage constantly has 5 enemies like shared HP enemies or pure fiction. E2 is also a really powerful Eidolon because healing Mydei now also gives him charges. It is unfortunately only 40% efficiency, but even then it increases his frequency of God Slayer in addition to defense reduction, which is why it's such a huge damage increase. This can actually still get better in the future if, again, the future healer is able to heal an absurd amount since the tally resets after any unit's action. E4 is still a very useful Eidolon but leans more into his dependency on enemies attacking him. Combined with his E2, Mydei can gain a lot of charges if the enemy he's facing are particularly fierce. E6 allows Mydei to immediately enter the Vendetta state, but more importantly, reduces Godslayer's required charge to 100 from 150. Again, directly increasing his frequency of Godslayer, just like E2, and naturally also gives him a massive damage boost. Hence, when it comes to E1 versus S1, I do still think S1 has better value overall, unless you have Blade's signature light cone, but I get that the auto-targeting can be annoying for some people. In that case, I would maybe consider E1. The bigger priority would be E2, but I think securing the upcoming healer is the most important, provided that they do work well with Mydei. Next we have teams. Right now I am only accounting for a hyper carry Mydei setup, and it's quite straightforward. His choice of healers are fairly limited if you want to play him to his maximum potential. These healers are Lorcha and Gallagher. I actually find Gallagher to perform better provided he can constantly keep his Besotted state on enemies, since each enemy hit will heal him, whereas for Lorcha's field, it only heals once at a time regardless of how many enemies that you hit. This automatic healing from Gallagher makes it easier to stay at full HP, which will then translate to even more charges generated. Ho can technically be decent as well, but Gallagher is a 4-star unit. Anyways, for supports we have Sunday, 3B, Remembrance Trailblazer, Bronya, and technically Sparkle. On top of wanting to stay at full HP, taking extra turns is great for Mydei because he can consume more HP in a shorter period of time. And when you combine automatic healing from Lorcha or Gallagher with advanced supports, this allows Mydei to stack up a ton of charges very quickly. 3B is however still a really good support and even technically performs slightly better than Remembrance Trailblazer even without 100% advance. However, I think 3B will really shine or definitely be the better choice if we are able to pair Mydei with another damage carry where we run a dual DPS setup. Bronya is basically an alternative Sunday. Her buffs last a shorter period of time, which can kinda hurt because sometimes Mydei activates Godslayer outside of his own turns. Sparkle isn't the greatest choice but can work because Mydei isn't extremely SP intensive, and the 135 and 134 setup with 100% advanced support gives him more turns and hence more charges. Also, in my previous video I had thought that the extra turn Mydei takes actually eats up buff duration, but I think this is not true, and Mydei will not lose the buff duration during Godslayer, which is what allows him to have a very high uptime on buffs like Sunday's ultimate and Mem's true damage buff. It does seem like a pretty rough time for potential Mydei mains out there with all the negativity surrounding his autoplay kit, but I genuinely think it's not big enough of a downside to ruin his kit, and I also genuinely see some hope in the future for him, but that obviously depends on the Hoyo devs. What I can guarantee is that with the right builds and setups, that he will fry Memory of Chaos and he will still be a great character. Anyways, that's pretty much it for my Mydei guide. Don't forget to like or even subscribe to support the channel. See you.